the paradox of free will. Let's start with a simple question, but don't answer it right away. Are you truly free in all your decisions? Right now, as you are listening to these words, or perhaps lying in bed with the faint light from your screen, you might feel like you are freely choosing how to spend your time, free to think about what I am about to say. But what if I told you that feeling of freedom might just be an illusion, a thin curtain hiding a deeper reality? What would you think? Free will, the idea we often see as the foundation of being human, the thing that makes us different from unthinking machines or creatures that act only on instinct, does it really exist? Or is it just a beautiful story we tell ourselves to feel comfort in a cold and random universe? Let me take you on a journey, a slow walk through the corners of philosophy, science, and even the hidden parts of your own mind. Free will is not a new concept. It has haunted people for centuries, from the philosophers in robes under the ancient Greek sky to the scientists in modern labs with flickering screens and complex charts. But the deeper we dig, the more we realize the answer is not as simple as we expected. Instead, it leads us to a paradox, a conflict that cannot be resolved, a question that twists the mind like a circle with no escape. And as you sink into these words, let them flow through you like a calm river, carrying deep thoughts, bringing you closer to sleep, but at the same time sparking a strange curiosity. Imagine you are standing at a three-way crossroads. On the left is a path leading into a dense forest, where light barely peeks through the thick leaves. On the right is a long, endless field, where the wind blows through the grass, creating whispering sounds like a song without words. Which way do you choose to go? Are you free to decide, or was that choice already shaped by what happened before? By the way you grew up? By the experiences carved deep into your mind, by the very way your brain has been wired since you were born? If you choose the forest, is that really your wish, or is it just the result of an invisible chain of dominoes that started falling long ago, before you even realized you were standing at this crossroads? The philosopher Baruch Spinoza, a man who lived in the 17th century with deep eyes and quiet thoughts, once said that freedom is an illusion. He sat in his small room in Holland, the candlelight flickering on his pages, and wrote that people are no different from stones rolling down a hill. We think we choose our direction, but really, all our movements are controlled by greater forces, by nature, by the unchangeable laws of the universe. Spinoza saw the world as a giant machine, a system where everything has a cause and an effect, with no room for chance or free decisions. If you raise your hand right now, Spinoza would say that wasn't your will. It was the result of a long chain of events stretching back before you were born, from how your parents taught you, to the meals you've eaten, to the genes you inherited from your distant ancestors. Think about that for a moment. Your feeling of freedom, the feeling that you are the master of your actions, might just be a faint shadow, dancing on the wall of reality. But not everyone agrees with Spinoza. Let me take you to a small cafe in Paris in the middle of the 20th century, where cigarette smoke drifted in the air and philosophical debates rose above the clinking of coffee cups. There, Jean-Paul Sartre, an existential philosopher with a sharp gaze and a passionate voice, argued the exact opposite. Sartre believed that humans are not only free, but are condemned to be free. He sat there, in his dark coat with a cigarette in his hand, and said that we have no choice but to define ourselves through our decisions. There is no fate, no fixed nature. There are only your actions, and you must take full responsibility for them. If you choose the forest instead of the field, it's not because of your genes or your situation. It's because you chose it, and that choice defines who you are. Sartre saw life as an empty stage where you are both the actor and the scriptwriter, and you can blame no one but yourself. These two views seem completely opposite. Spinoza says freedom is an illusion, and Sartre says freedom is all we have. But the strange thing is, when you listen to both, you start to feel a mysterious tension. A feeling that both might be right, or both might be wrong, in a way we can't quite grasp. Let me tell you a story to make this clearer. Imagine a man named Elias, living in a small village among green hills. One day, Elias decides to leave the village to find a new life in the city. He packs his things, says goodbye to his family, and gets on the train early in the morning, while fog still covers the fields. Elias feels free. He feels like he's taking his destiny into his own hands. But if you look deeper, you see that decision didn't come from nowhere. His father used to tell him stories about the city when Elias was a child, planting a seed of curiosity. The economy in the village was getting worse, pushing him toward a change. And maybe, deep in Elias's DNA, there was a genetic drive that made him crave adventure more than others. So, was Elias really free? Or was he just a puppet on invisible strings? Now, let's let modern science step into the story, because it brings a new layer of meaning, a layer that can make you feel both amazed and uneasy. In recent decades, neuroscientists have begun to explore how our brains work when we make decisions. They put people into brain scanners, asked them to do simple things like press a button or raise their hand, and watched what happened. The results were amazing, and a bit chilling. In a famous experiment by the scientist Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, they discovered that the brain activity related to an action, like the decision to press a button, appeared before the person was aware of having made the decision. Let me explain that more clearly. By the time you think you've just chosen to do something, your brain may have already been preparing for that action, sometimes up to 7 seconds before your consciousness gave the green light. Imagine that for a moment. You're sitting there, believing you just freely decided to keep listening to these words, but maybe your brain quietly flipped that switch long before you realized it. What does this mean? Is free will just a story our conscious mind tells itself, while the real gears are turning on a deeper level, outside of our control? Let me give you another, more common example. This morning, maybe you chose what to eat for breakfast: a piece of toast, a bowl of cereal, or just a cup of black coffee. You feel like that was your choice, a small moment of freedom. But what if I told you that choice might have been shaped by factors you didn't even think about? Maybe you chose toast because it's what your mother used to make when you were young, a quiet habit that stuck in your mind. Maybe you chose coffee because you slept badly last night, and your body was craving a little energy. Or maybe, at a deeper level, your metabolism, shaped by millions of years of evolution, leaned you toward one choice over another. When you look at it this way, that feeling of freedom starts to dissolve, like fog melting in the sun. And as it melts, a bigger question appears: if we are not truly free, what does that say about us? Take a moment to think about this. Close your eyes if you want. Let the darkness surround you and feel the weight of this question. If free will doesn't exist, if all our actions are just the result of causes we can't control, then where does our moral responsibility lie? When you praise someone for their kindness, or blame someone for their selfishness, you are assuming they chose to act that way. But if they didn't choose, if that kindness or selfishness is just the product of a complex biological and social machine, then what is the point of praise or blame? Imagine a world where all sins are forgiven, not out of mercy, but because no one is truly responsible. That's a thought that is both freeing and terrifying, isn't it? It's like standing on the edge of a deep abyss, looking down into the endless dark, not knowing if anything is there to catch you if you fall. But don't stop there. Let me push you a little further, into a deeper corner of this paradox. If free will is an illusion, does life still have meaning? We often think that meaning comes from our ability to shape our own destiny, from choosing our own path in a chaotic world. But if everything is already set in motion, not by a god or a grand plan, but by the blind laws of physics and biology, does that make life empty? Or maybe, in a strange way, it gives us a different kind of freedom, the freedom from the burden of having to control everything. Imagine you are a leaf floating on a river. You don't choose the current, but you still float, you still experience the beauty of the world around you. Maybe meaning isn't found in the choice, but in the journey itself. I want you to try something small right now, if you haven't fallen into sleep yet. Raise your hand, or wiggle your toe. Any action you want. Do it, and pay attention to that feeling. Do you feel like you are commanding your body? Or do you just feel like you are watching something happen, like an audience member in your own body? As you do it, ask yourself, who is really in control? Is it you? Or is it something deeper, hidden beneath the surface of your consciousness? Don't rush to find an answer. Just let that question hang in your mind, like a faint star in the night sky, inviting you to look up but not demanding that you understand. As we end this part, I want you to let your body relax. Breathe deeply, and feel the peace of this moment. The paradox of free will isn't something to be solved in one night, or even in one lifetime. It's a mystery to embrace, to reflect on, to carry with you into your dreams. And as you drift off to sleep, let this thought lead the way. From the question of freedom, we will move to another paradox. A question that is even deeper: is this reality all that exists? But that is a story for the next part. For now, rest, and let your mind drift. The simulation hypothesis. Imagine you are sitting here, in a quiet room, the faint light from a nightlight or a screen casting dancing shadows on the wall, like dreams that haven't fully formed. Now, ask yourself a question that maybe you've never thought of, or if you have, it just passed by like a cold breeze. What if everything you are experiencing, this room, your breath, my voice, is just a sophisticated computer simulation? What if the life you call real isn't the base reality, but just a layer of code? A string of data programmed by something, or someone, far beyond our imagination. This isn't a wild idea from a science fiction novel. It's a serious hypothesis proposed by the philosopher Nick Bostrom in the early 21st century. He called it the simulation hypothesis, and as you listen to these words, I invite you to relax your body, breathe deeply, and let your mind follow this mysterious line of thought. A flow that is both exciting and gentle, like a lullaby pulling you towards sleep. Let's start by imagining a world that isn't too strange to us. Have you ever played a video game? Maybe a simple one from your childhood, like controlling a character jumping over obstacles. Or a more complex game, where you build an entire city, deciding the fate of thousands of virtual residents. In those games, the characters move, act, and sometimes seem to think, but you know they aren't real. They are just lines of code, numbers dancing in a computer's processor, programmed to react the way their creator wanted. Now, zoom that idea out 1 billion times. Imagine a game not just with a few characters, but with billions of people. Each one has memories, feelings, and dreams, and all of them believe they are real. You, me, the people you love, the strangers you meet on the street, all of us are just characters in this great game. Living in a reality built by a civilization so advanced we can't even picture it. That is the core of the simulation hypothesis. And as you sink into this thought, let it wash over you like a slow wave, no rush, no pressure, just be present with it. Nick Bostrom, a Swedish philosopher with, what I imagine is, messy hair and a thoughtful gaze, proposed this idea in 2003 in a revolutionary paper. He didn't write it as a fantasy story, but as a tight, logical argument, almost like math in its precision. Bostrom sat in his office at Oxford University, surrounded by shelves full of deep ideas, and laid out 3 possibilities. He called them the three-way fork. The first path: no civilization in the universe ever reaches a high enough level of technology to create such realistic simulations. Maybe they destroy themselves before they get there, or maybe some law of physics stops them. The second path: advanced civilizations can create such simulations, but for some reason, ethics, boredom, or just a lack of interest, they choose not to. And the third path, the one that might make your mind vibrate like a plucked guitar string: if those civilizations do exist and do create simulations, then the number of simulated realities would be billions of times greater than the one, real reality. And if that's true, the probability that we are living in the one, original, base reality becomes tiny, almost impossible. Think about it, in a universe where thousands, millions, or even billions of simulations exist, what are the chances that you and I are the first real beings, the ones who aren't programmed? It's like trying to find one specific grain of sand in an entire, vast desert. Let me take you deeper into this idea, not with dry numbers, but with a living picture. Imagine a day far in the future, maybe a few hundred years, or a few thousand, depending on how fast we evolve. Humans have passed the technological boundaries we only dream of today. Computers are no longer clunky metal boxes, but vast systems that can recreate an entire universe in its smallest detail. Scientists, or perhaps beings that no longer have human bodies, sit at glowing control panels, programming complete worlds. They create planets orbiting stars, oceans filled with life, and intelligent creatures just like us, who live, love, fight, and die without ever knowing it's all just part of a program. These creators might do it to study history, for entertainment, or simply to see what happens when they press run. And in a world like that, you, right now, could be a character in their experiment, a point of light on their screen, a story being told that you will never know the end of. But stop for a moment and think about this. If we really are living in a simulation, it's not that different from something we're already used to. Remember your dreams. Last night, maybe you dreamed you were walking on a crowded street, talking to strangers, or flying through the clouds like a free bird. In that dream, it all felt real. You could feel the wind on your skin, hear laughter, even smell coffee from a small shop. But when you woke up, you realized none of it was real. It was just a simulation created by your own mind, a virtual world you completely believed in until the daylight pulled you back. So, what stops this reality, the one you're in right now, from just being another dream, programmed by a higher intelligence? Let this thought drift over you, light as a breath, and feel the wonder and unease it brings. Now, let me tell you a short story to make this clearer. Imagine a girl named Myra, living in a future city with sparkling skyscrapers and flying cars. Myra is a talented programmer, and her job is to create virtual worlds for a big game company. One day, she designs a perfect simulation, a small town with stone streets, gardens full of flowers, and residents living their peaceful lives. She spends months perfecting every detail, the way the sunlight shines through the leaves, the sound of the river flowing through town, even the random conversations between the characters. When she turns the program on, she watches those residents live, laugh, love, and sometimes argue, all of them unaware that they are just lines of code Myra wrote. One night, sitting in her quiet apartment, Myra wonders, what if I'm a character just like that? What if someone, somewhere, is watching me through a screen, adjusting the light in my room, or the sound of the rain falling outside my window? Myra felt a chill run down her spine. But at the same time, she also felt a strange peace, as if knowing she might not be real freed her from the pressure of having to control everything. Myra's story leads us to a deeper question, one I want you to hold onto as you lie there, relaxing your body and letting your mind drift. If we are really living in a simulation, then who are the players? Who are the beings behind the control panel, watching us through invisible screens? Maybe they are the descendants of humanity itself, evolved versions of us from millions of years in the future. Or maybe they are a completely different species, with forms and thoughts we can't even imagine, creatures that don't need physical bodies, but just exist as flows of consciousness in a vast cosmic network. And if they are playing this game, what is their purpose? Are they laughing at our mistakes, crying with our pain, or just watching, cold and detached, like scientists looking through a microscope? Imagine that for a moment. An invisible pair of eyes, or maybe not eyes, but something else, is watching you right now, recording your every thought, your every heartbeat. How does that make you feel? Uneasy, or comforted? Let that feeling wash over you, gently, without judgment. But there's one more question, an even more haunting one. What happens when the game ends? If this life is a simulation, does it have an off switch? Maybe one day, when we reach a certain point, when we discover the truth, or when we become too boring, the creators will just stop the program. The screen will go black. And everything we know will disappear. Like a dream vanishes when you open your eyes. Or maybe, in a stranger way, the game never ends. We just get moved to another simulation. With new memories, a new story, never knowing we've already played this thousands of times before. Think about it. Have you ever felt déjà vu? That moment when you are sure you have lived this exact same second before. Maybe it's not a trick of the mind. Maybe it's a small glitch in the code, a trace of an old loop. Let your mind drift on this question. No answer is needed. Just feel the size of it. As we get near the end of this part, I want you to try one small thing. Look around you, the room, the familiar objects, the dim light. Ask yourself, how do I know this is real? Is it because I can feel it? Or am I just programmed to feel it? Don't try to answer right away. Just let that question float, like a cloud drifting slowly across the night sky. The simulation hypothesis isn't something to prove or disprove in this moment. It's an invitation, a door opening to wonderful and scary possibilities, a path for your mind to walk as your body sinks into relaxation. And as you close your eyes, as your breath slows and the world around you begins to fade, let this thought lead you to the next part of the journey. From the idea of a fake reality, we will ask another question, another mystery of the universe: why is it so strangely silent? But that is a story for next time. For now, rest, and let the endless possibilities of the simulation carry you into your dreams. The Fermi Paradox. Imagine you are lying under a night sky, with no city lights to dim the stars. Above, billions of points of light sparkle endlessly. Each point is a sun, a giant furnace that might be warming worlds we have never known. You look up and wonder, in all that vastness, is anyone else looking back at us? The universe is immense, with billions of stars, billions of galaxies. Each galaxy holds endless possibilities for life, so why haven't we heard any sound from its other inhabitants? Not one signal, not one greeting, not one sign to show that we are not alone. This is the Fermi Paradox, a simple but haunting question, asked by the physicist Enrico Fermi. And as you listen to these words, I invite you to relax your body. Let your breath blend into the slow rhythm of the universe, and let your mind drift along this deep line of thought, a flow that is both mysterious and gentle, like a poem whispered in the dark. Let me take you back to a summer afternoon in 1950, in the dining hall of the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico. Enrico Fermi, a man with sharp eyes, sat with a few colleagues, brilliant minds who had helped build the first atomic bomb. The air was filled with laughter and casual chat, when someone mentioned a funny article about aliens. Fermi, with his characteristic half-smile, suddenly interrupted. He put his sandwich down, looked around the table, and asked a question that would later become legendary: where is everybody? That question wasn't a joke. It was a flash of insight from his mind, a mind used to looking deep into the mysteries of the universe, from the smallest atom to the farthest stars. He knew the universe is ancient, about 13.8 billion years old, long enough for intelligent civilizations to appear, develop, and spread across the galaxies. So why, in all that vastness, do we still not see them? That question isn't just a scientific puzzle. It's a paradox, a conflict between what we expect and what we actually experience. And as you lie there, in the quiet of this moment, let Fermi's question hang in your mind, like a faint star inviting you to look deeper. To understand this paradox, let's start with the scale of the universe, a scale the human mind can only touch through images and comparisons. Imagine our Earth as a tiny speck of dust, floating in a large room. The sun is a bright ball in the corner of the room, and the solar system is the area around it. But even that area is just a tiny part of the giant house that is the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way, with its hundreds of billions of stars, is a city of light stretching 100,000 light-years across. And even it is just one grain of sand on the cosmic beach, where hundreds of billions of other galaxies shine in the darkness. Astronomers estimate that in the observable universe, there are about 2 trillion galaxies, each containing billions of stars. And many of those stars may have planets orbiting them, worlds with water, air, and the conditions needed for life. If only a small fraction of those gave birth to life, and a smaller fraction of that life developed into intelligent civilizations, then the universe should be overflowing with signals, spaceships, and traces of their presence. But instead, we only hear silence. A deep silence, as if the entire universe is holding its breath, waiting for something we cannot understand. So, why the silence? Let me walk you through a few paths that might explain this. Each path is its own story, a possibility that is both fascinating and chilling. The first path leads us to the idea that aliens might be hiding. Imagine an advanced civilization, with cities floating in the clouds or tiny machines as small as dust, able to hide their presence from curious eyes like ours. Perhaps they have developed technology far beyond our crude telescopes or radio waves, and they choose to watch us from afar, without interfering, without revealing themselves. Some scientists call this the zoo hypothesis, the idea that Earth is a wildlife preserve. A park where other intelligent beings watch us the way we watch lions in an enclosure. Imagine that, right now, as you lie there, maybe an invisible pair of eyes, or something that doesn't need eyes, is watching you. Recording your every action, every thought, but never letting you know. Does that thought make you shiver? Or does it bring a strange feeling, as if you are part of a bigger story that you don't fully understand? But there is another, darker path. What if other civilizations did exist, but now they are gone? The universe is not an easy place to survive. Stars exploding into supernovas, gamma-ray bursts shooting from black holes, planets burned by climate change, all are threats that can wipe out life before it can reach for the stars. Think about ourselves. Humanity has only had technology for a few hundred years, a blink of an eye in cosmic time. We have created wonders, but we also stand on the brink of self-destruction with war, pollution, and our own mistakes. Maybe other civilizations also walked this same path, building magnificent cities, sending signals into space, but then fell into silence, leaving behind ruins that we are not yet able to find. Imagine a distant world, where glass towers are now just rubble covered in sand, where machines that once sang now lie quiet under a layer of cosmic dust. It's a sad image, but it also has a quiet beauty in its fragility, doesn't it? And then, there is another possibility, simple but profound: maybe we are the only ones. Of all the billions of stars and billions of planets, maybe Earth is the only place where life has sparked, where consciousness has awakened like a small flame in the endless dark. Scientists call this the rare Earth hypothesis. They say that life needs so many magical conditions to happen all at once: a planet at just the right distance from its star, a perfect atmosphere, a precise chain of chemical reactions to create the first cells. If those conditions are too rare, then the universe might be full of empty planets, lifeless oceans, and skies with no one to watch them. Imagine you are the only person standing on an endless beach. The waves crash at your feet, but there is no one else to share that moment. That loneliness might make you feel small, but at the same time, it also turns you into a miracle, a unique point of light in a cold and empty universe. Let me tell you a small story to highlight this paradox. Imagine a boy named Luca, living in a small village by the sea. Every night, Luca sits on the rocks near the shore, looking up at the starry sky and dreaming of aliens. He imagines them coming in glittering ships, bringing stories from distant worlds. One day, he finds an old radio in his grandfather's shed and spends weeks fixing it, hoping to catch a signal from space. Night after night, he listens, but there is only the hissing sound of static in his ears. Finally, Luca realizes that there probably isn't anyone out there to answer. But instead of sadness, he feels a strange peace. If he is the only one listening, then the act of listening becomes more precious than ever. Luca's story is like our story. We send signals into space, the Voyager probes, radio waves, but the universe remains silent. And in that silence, we must find meaning for ourselves. Now, let's go a little deeper into the profound meaning of this paradox. Is the silence of the universe a warning? Perhaps it is telling us that intelligent life is fragile, that civilizations cannot last long against the challenges of time and space. If so, then every day we survive is a victory, a challenge to the darkness. But there is also another, gentler possibility. Perhaps we are just a cosmic accident, a beautiful coincidence in a world with no plan or purpose. Close your eyes, and imagine that vast universe, stars burning for billions of years, galaxies spinning in a slow dance. And in the middle of it all, one tiny planet with tiny creatures, wondering about their place in it all. Does that image make you feel lonely? Or does it bring a sense of peace, as if you are blending into something much larger than yourself? I want you to try one small thing right now, if you haven't fallen asleep yet. Breathe deeply, and listen to the sounds around you, the wind outside the window, the sound of your own breath, or the stillness of the room. Ask yourself, is this silence like the silence of the universe? Is it telling us something, or is it simply present, waiting for us to find the answer? Don't rush to find the answer. Just let the question drift over you, like a gentle wave washing ashore. As we end this part, let your body relax completely, let your breath slow down, and let your mind drift in the vastness of the universe. The Fermi paradox is not a question to be solved in one night, but a mystery to embrace, to reflect on as you slowly sink into a dream. And as you drift away, let this thought lead you to the next part. If we are truly alone, is our consciousness the only miracle in all this vastness? But that is a story for next time. Now, rest, and let the silence of the universe lull you to sleep. The secret of consciousness. Stop for a moment, right at this moment, and feel your own existence. You are here, listening to these words. Maybe you are lying on the bed with a dim light from a small lamp, or sitting in a quiet corner with the night surrounding you. You feel your breath, a gentle heartbeat rising in your chest, and quiet thoughts flowing through like clouds in your inner sky. But what makes all of those things, feelings, thoughts, awareness, become you? What makes you you, and not someone else, not a machine, or a lifeless object? It is consciousness, a magical ability to feel, think, and experience the world. A mystery that even science has struggled to solve for centuries. It's like a small fire burning in the dark, but no one knows where that fire comes from or why it exists. As you listen to these words, I invite you to relax your body, to let your breath slow down, and to let your mind follow this deep stream of thought. A stream that is both stimulating and gentle, like a whisper from the universe, bringing you into the silence of sleep. Consciousness is not what we often think about in daily life. It is too close, too obvious, so we rarely stop to ask what it is. Imagine a normal morning. You wake up, the sun shines through the window, and you hear birds singing outside. You make a cup of coffee, feel the warmth from the mug in your hands, smell its rich aroma, and when you take a sip, the bitter taste spreads on your tongue. All of those experiences, light, sound, warmth, smell, taste, are all products of consciousness, your ability to notice and feel the world. But if I ask you what creates those experiences, what makes you see the light or hear the birds, how would you answer? Is it your brain, with billions of nerve cells dancing in a complex rhythm? Or is it something deeper, something science cannot touch, something science can only dig in the dark to find? This is the mystery of consciousness, a question that not only defines who we are, but also challenges how we understand reality. Let me take you back to the 17th century, to a small room in France, where a man named René Descartes sat by a wooden table, the candlelight shining on his pale face. Descartes, with his long hair and dark eyes, was one of the first to try to face this mystery. He doubted everything in the world, his senses, even his own body, but there was one thing he could not doubt, that he was thinking. I am conscious, so I exist, he wrote, and with that famous saying, he put consciousness at the center of human existence. For Descartes, consciousness was a separate thing, separate from the physical body. He imagined it as a spiritual fire, not bound by the laws of the physical world, something closer to the soul than to flesh and blood. But even Descartes, with his sharp mind, could not answer a bigger question: how did that fire start? How could something invisible, something you can't weigh, appear from a mass of gray matter in our skull? Now, let's move to modern times, where science has replaced Descartes' candlelight with flashing brain scanners and screens showing nerve signals. Scientists can look inside your skull, observe how nerve cells send signals when you think, feel, or make a decision. They can point out that when you see the red color of an apple, a specific area in your brain lights up. Or when you hear music, a different area vibrates to the beat. They can explain how dopamine makes you feel happy, or how adrenaline makes your heart beat fast when you're scared. But there is a line that science cannot seem to cross, an invisible wall between what it can measure and what you actually experience. You can describe a feeling of happiness, but how do you communicate that exact experience to others? How do you explain that the color red isn't just the light or the nerve activity, but the feeling of brightness, the redness you feel when you look at that apple? The philosopher David Chalmers, a man with long hair and a warm voice, called this the hard problem of consciousness. He stood on stage at scientific conferences at the end of the 20th century, looked at a crowd of researchers, and said that we can explain all the functions of the brain, but we still can't touch the mystery of why and how those physical activities create subjective experiences. Let me tell you a small story to illustrate this. Imagine a girl named Lena living in a small village by the river. Lena was born blind, and her world was built from sound, touch, the smell of running water, the feeling of grass under her feet, the smell of the earth after a rain. One day, she asked her brother, "What does red look like?" Her brother, with all his patience and love, tried to explain. He said that red is like the warmth of a fire, like the sound of your heart beating fast when you run, like the smell of ripe fruit. But no matter how hard he tried, Lena still couldn't see that red. Not because she wasn't smart, but because that experience was beyond her ability. Lena's story is a metaphor for the problem of consciousness. We can measure, describe, and analyze the brain, but how do we communicate the true nature of a personal experience? How do you explain that you are not your body, not your thoughts, but the one vivid feeling that makes you know you are existing? Let me take you deeper into this mystery, not with dry theories, but with images and feelings. Imagine you are standing in a dark room, and there is only a small candle in front of you. The light from the candle creates strange shadows on the wall, and you feel its warmth spreading to your hands. Now, ask yourself, what makes you know the candle is there? It's not your eyes, it's not your hands. It's your consciousness, which can turn signals from the outside world into an inner experience. But what if I told you that the candle might not really exist? That it's just an illusion created by your mind, like in a dream? Science can tell you that your eyes detect light, that your brain processes signals. But it cannot explain why you feel that light, why it becomes a part of you. This is where consciousness becomes a mystery, a door leading to a world we don't understand, and perhaps never will. Now, let's go a little further into the deep meaning of this mystery. If consciousness cannot be explained by science, if it's not just the result of neurons and chemicals, then what is it? Is it an illusion, a trick of the mind that makes us think we are special, while in reality, we are just complex biological machines? Some scientists, like Daniel Dennett, have argued that consciousness, in the traditional sense, doesn't exist. That it's just a story the brain tells, a way to organize data from the outside world. Imagine that your feeling of self, that you are a single being, might just be an illusion, like a beautiful reflection in a mirror that doesn't really exist. But if that's true, then why does it feel so real? Why do joy, sadness, and love have the power to move us, to make us cry, laugh, or stay up all night thinking about life? Or maybe, in another way, consciousness is something beyond the physical. A spiritual being, a ray of light from a source we cannot understand. Thinkers, like Descartes, and religious leaders over the centuries have believed that consciousness is the soul, a part of us connected to something bigger. Maybe the universe, maybe a high purpose that science has never touched. Imagine your consciousness is like a drop of water in the ocean, a part of you, but also belonging to a larger whole. If that's true, then the secret isn't how consciousness appears, but why it appeared in us, in tiny creatures on a tiny planet in this vast universe. Let this question flow through your mind, gently like a breeze. No answer is needed. Just feel the wonder of it. I want you to try a small thing right now, if you haven't fallen asleep yet. Close your eyes, and listen. Not to the sound outside, but to the sound inside. Your breath, the quiet stream of thoughts flowing through your mind. Ask yourself, what is it that is aware of all this? What makes me realize that I am here? Don't try to answer right away. Just let that feeling wrap around you, like a warm blanket on a cold night. Consciousness is a mystery we carry with us every day, a fire we can't put out, a question we can't stop asking. As we finish this part, let your body relax completely. Let your breath slow down, and let your mind drift with this mystery. Consciousness is not a lock to be opened in one night, but a journey to embrace, to think about as you slowly sink into a dream. And as you go, let this thought lead you to the next part. From our personal consciousness, we will come to a question about the existence of the whole, about how we define ourselves in a world that is always changing. But that's a story for next time. Now, rest, and let the mystery of consciousness lull you to sleep. The Ship of Theseus. Imagine you are standing on a beach, with your feet lightly on the rocks, and in front of you is an old wooden boat, floating quietly on the water. The wind blows by, carrying the smell of salt and the sound of distant waves. This boat, with its faded boards and worn-out ropes, was once the pride of a sailor named Theseus, who used it to cross storms and explore strange lands in Greek mythology. But now, after many years, every piece of wood on the boat has been replaced. Every time a plank broke, Theseus replaced it with a new one. And every time a rope snapped, he tied on a new one. One day, not a single piece of wood, not a single rope, was left from the original boat. So the question is the boat floating in front of you still the Ship of Theseus? This is the Ship of Theseus, an ancient question about identity, a mystery that makes your mind spin like a wave that never stops. As you listen to these words, I invite you to relax your body, let your breath blend with the rhythm of the sea, and let your mind follow this deep stream of thought. A stream that is both stimulating and gentle, like a dream slowly appearing in the darkness. This mystery isn't just a fun riddle. It's a doorway to the root of existence, where we face ourselves and ask what truly defines us. Let me take you back to ancient Greece, to the time of the sages in white robes, walking under the Mediterranean sun and discussing the nature of the world. The mystery of the Ship of Theseus was first recorded by Plutarch, a historian who lived in the 1st century AD. He told the story of the Ship of Theseus, which was kept as a holy object in Athens. But over time, every part of it was replaced to keep it floating. The people of Athens looked at the ship with pride, calling it the Ship of Theseus, but the philosophers began to argue. If nothing was left of the original ship, what made it still have that name? Was it the shape of the boat? The way the planks were joined together? Or was it the memory of Theseus's voyages, the story that the ship represented? Plutarch wrote that this question sparked heated debates among philosophers, from Heraclitus, who believed everything changes, to Aristotle, who tried to find fixed principles in the chaos. Imagine you are one of those philosophers, standing on the shore of the port in Athens, watching the ship drift by. You put your hand on the wooden railing, feeling the scratches and the smell of the wood. You know this piece of wood is not the one Theseus touched, that this rope is not the one he tied. But when you close your eyes, you can still imagine Theseus standing on the deck, his hair flying in the wind, the sound of the waves and the creak of the ship like an old song. So what makes this boat the Ship of Theseus? Is its identity in the material, the pieces of wood and rope? Or is it in the story, in the meaning that people gave it? This isn't just a question about a boat. It's about us. about how we understand ourselves in a world where everything never stops changing. Now, let's bring this paradox closer to your own body and mind. Science tells us that your body is not a fixed thing, but a constant flow. Every 7 to 10 years, most of the cells in your body are replaced. Your skin flakes off and is remade, your bones are broken down and rebuilt, even the nerve cells in your brain change over time. Think about it. The you of today, the one listening to these words, is no longer the you of 10 years ago, at least, not in terms of material. The hands you have, the eyes you are using to see the dark, are all made of different atoms. So, is the you of today the same as the you of the past? If everything about you has changed, what is it that makes you still feel like you? What still holds the memories, habits, fears, and dreams from all those years? Let me tell you a small story to make this clear. Imagine a man named Elias living in a small village among yellow rice fields. When he was young, Elias was an energetic boy who loved to run on the village roads and dreamed of long trips. One day, he had an accident and his left arm was badly injured and had to be replaced with an artificial arm made of wood and metal. Elias accepted the change, learned to use the new arm, and continued living. Over the years, he had more small accidents. A broken leg was replaced with a prosthetic leg. A failing eye was replaced with a glass eye. When Elias grew old, he sat on a wooden chair in front of his house and watched the sunset. His body had nothing left from the day he was born. Every part had been replaced, from bone to skin, from blood. But when he looked back on his life, he still felt like he was Elias. The one who ran in the fields, the one who dreamed big dreams. So who is Elias? Is he the body he used to have? Or is he the story he carries in his heart? Imagine you are Elias, sitting there in the silence and asking yourself, what makes me? Me. This question takes us deeper into the mystery, and into a land where you yourself have become an illusion. Think about objects in your life. The chair you're sitting on may have been repaired many times, with a new coat of paint, but you still call it my chair. The car you're driving may have had its engine replaced, but you still see it as your same old car. Its identity, in some way, seems not to be in its physical parts, but in its continuity, in the story we tell about it. But if that's true, then is your car, your chair, just a story? Imagine your mind is a book. Every day is a new page, every experience a line of words written on it. Over time, the old pages fade, the words change, but you still feel that book is yours. But if all the pages are replaced, if there is no line of writing left from the first day, is that book still you? Let me push you a little bit further into a deeper corner of this mystery. If yourself is just a story, then who is the narrator? Is it your consciousness, the voice inside your head? Or is it something else, a stream of memories and habits that you don't fully control? Science tells us that your brain does not stop changing. Every time you learn something new, every time you forget a memory, the connections in your brain are rearranged. The you from 10 years ago, with simple joys and fears, no longer exists in the same brain as the you of today. So what connects you over time? Is it a continuous feeling, a feeling that you are always here? Or is it an illusion that your mind creates to keep everything feeling meaningful? Imagine you are a river. The water is always flowing, always new, but the river still carries one name from its source to the sea. Is that river really one single thing, or just a chain of different streams that we call by the same name? Now, let's go deeper into the meaning of this mystery. What defines your self? Is it your body, with its ever-changing cells? Is it your memories, the vague fragments of the past? Or is it your consciousness, which seems to be standing outside the stream of time, watching everything pass by? If everything changes, if there is nothing left from your first day, then what do we have left? Some thinkers, like John Locke, said that identity is in memory, that you are you because you remember who you were. But if memory also fades, if one day you forget everything, are you still yourself? Imagine a person who has lost their memory, who no longer remembers their name, their family, or their past. That person still lives, still feels, but has their old self disappeared? Or has it simply turned into a new story? Let me tell you another story, a sad but beautiful story. Imagine a woman named Clara, living in a small house by the forest. Clara has an old piano passed down from her grandmother, an instrument that she has cherished more than anything. Over the years, the piano gradually broke. The strings snapped, and the wood crumbled with time. Clara, with all her love, replaced each part of the piano, new strings, new wood, until there was nothing left from the original piano. But every time she sat down to play, she still felt her grandmother's soul in each note, as if the piano was still the same old one. One night, as Clara was playing a slow piece under the moonlight, she asked herself, if the piano is no longer my grandmother's, why do I still hear her in it? That question had no answer, but it brought a strange peace, as if the piano did not need to be fixed in time to have meaning. I want you to try a little thing right now, if you haven't fallen asleep yet. Put your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat, slowly, steadily, like the beat of time. Ask yourself, what makes me me? Is it this heart, even though it has changed? Is it my thoughts, even though they never stop flowing? Or is it just the feeling that I am here, right now? Don't rush to find the answer. Just let that question wander, like a ripple on the surface of a lake, inviting you to look deeper, but not asking you to understand. When we finish this part, let your body relax completely, let your breath slow down, and let your mind follow the deepness of this paradox. The paradox of the ship is not something to be solved in one night, but a mystery to embrace, to think about as you gradually sink into a dream. And when you drift away, let this thought lead you to the next part. From our personal identity, we will move on to the question of whether time itself really exists, or if it is just part of the story that we tell ourselves. But that's a story for next time. Now, let go, and let the waves of change carry you to sleep. The paradox of time. Imagine that you are sitting by a river. The water is quiet under the moonlight, the stars reflected like a dance in the darkness. You hear the sound of water flowing, a steady, unceasing sound, like your own breath. This river has flowed for a long time, through the days before you were born, and will continue to flow after you leave. But when you look at it, you ask yourself, what makes this river flow? What makes time flow, carrying your moments from the second you wake up to the second you hear these words? Time is something we feel every day, but what is it? Is it a real thing, a line that can be measured like length or weight? Or is it just an illusion of the mind, a way for us to organize the chaos of existence? This is the paradox of time, a mystery that makes the mind spin like the ripples on the river's surface. When you hear these words, I invite you to let go of your body, so that your breath can blend into the slow rhythm of the flowing river, and let your mind follow this mysterious thought. A flow that is both exciting and gentle, like a dream gradually opening up in the night. Time is a familiar idea, so familiar that we rarely stop to ask what it really is. You look at the clock, see the hands tick, and you know that a minute has passed, an hour has passed, a day is coming to an end. But what if I told you that time may not be what you think? That it may not go straight from the past to the future, but is something more complicated, more strange. Let me take you on a journey, not through numbers or equations, but through images and feelings, through ideas that have shaken even the greatest minds in history. We will start with a man named Albert Einstein, who changed the way we look at the universe, and then move to a man named Immanuel Kant, who looked into our own minds to find the answer. As you follow this thought, let it run through you like that river, not in a hurry, not with pressure, just simply present. Imagine you are in Zurich in the early 20th century, in a small office with white walls and a wooden desk. Albert Einstein, a young man with curly hair and bright eyes, is sitting there, holding a pen and a notebook full of equations. He was not the dry scientist you might imagine. He was a dreamer, a man who imagined things that no one else dared to think about. One day, as he looked at the clocks on the city's bell tower, he asked himself, what would happen if I moved faster than light? What would happen to time? From that question, he developed his theory of relativity, a theory that confuses everything we thought we knew. Einstein said that time is not a fixed stream, the same for everyone. It is relative. It changes depending on the speed you move and the gravity around you. If you sit on a spaceship flying near the speed of light, time on that ship will flow slower than time on Earth. When you come back from a long trip, you might find that your friends have aged decades, while you have only aged a few days. Imagine that, you leave with short black hair, and come back to see your loved ones old and gray, while you still look the same. Time, according to Einstein, is not a straight line, but something flexible, like a piece of fabric that can be stretched and pulled by the gravity of the universe. But if Einstein was right that time is flexible, it raises a strange question: does time really exist outside of us? To discover this, let me take you to another place, another century. Imagine you are in Königsberg, a small city at the end of the 18th century. Immanuel Kant, an old man with a small body and a habit of living as steadily as a clock, walks on the rocky streets every afternoon. Kant didn't care about spaceships, he looked into the human mind to understand time. He sat in his quiet room and wrote that time is not an independent thing out in the universe. Instead, he said, time is a way our mind experiences the world. It's an invisible framework that we put on the world to understand it. Think about it, when you remember this morning, you place it in the past. When you imagine tomorrow, you call it the future. But if you didn't have a consciousness to divide those moments, would time still exist? Kant said time is not something you can hold or measure like a rock or a drop of water. It is a part of you, a part of the way you see the world. Let me tell you a little story to make this clear. Imagine a woman named Ada, living in a small village by the sea. Ada has no watch, no calendar. She lives by the rhythm of nature, the sun rising, the tide coming in, the seasons changing. One day, a stranger came to the village, carrying a watch. He showed Ada how the hands move, how they split the day into small pieces called hours and minutes. Ada looked at the watch and heard its loud click, but she did not understand why the stranger needed it. To her, time wasn't a number on a clock, it was the feeling of the warm sun on the beach, the sound of the wind changing, the memory of past days. When the stranger left, Ada continued to live just as she had before, without needing a clock. Ada's story makes us wonder, if there is no one to notice time, to call it past or future, does it really exist? Is time just a story that our mind tells, a way to keep the world in order? Now, let's go a little deeper into the strange corners of this mystery. If Einstein was right that time is flexible, and if Kant was right that time is a product of the mind, then this leads us to a scary but beautiful idea. Perhaps the past, present, and future are not separate points on a line, but all coexist in a single reality. In physics, this is sometimes called the block universe theory, the idea that the universe is like a giant book, where every page, every moment, is already written and exists at the same time. Imagine you are a character in that book. Right now, you are on this page, in the moment you are hearing these words. But the page of the day you were born, and the page of the day you will pass, are all there, just a few pages away. If that is true, then time doesn't pass. We are just moving through the pages, limited by our consciousness. Imagine that, somewhere in the universe, your childhood self is still laughing, your future self is still daydreaming, and everything is part of you, right now. Let me give you another image to feel this idea. Imagine you are standing on a high hill, looking down at a long, winding road. From above, you can see the whole road, where it starts in a small village, where it bends around the river, and where it disappears behind the forest. But if you are a walker on that road, you can only see what is right in front of you, every step, every corner, without knowing the whole picture. Time, in this way, may be like that road. For us, it's a journey, but in a larger reality, every step is already there. Does that idea make you feel small? Or does it bring a strange peace, as if you are part of a great picture that you don't need to understand? Now, let's go deeper into the meaning of this. If the past, the present, and the future all exist, then is our life a loop? Not in the sense that we are repeating the same day, but in the sense that every moment is already set, and we're just playing out a script that is already written. Imagine you are an actor on a stage, reading lines that you don't remember learning, but they still feel like your lines. If time is a circle, or an unchanging block, then where is our freedom? Or maybe freedom isn't about changing the script, but about how we feel it, how we live inside each line. Let this idea flow gently through you, like a cool breeze. No answer is needed, just the feeling. Let me tell you one more story, a story about time and memory. Imagine a man named Theo, living in a small house on a mountain. One night, while sitting by the fireplace, Theo found an old wooden box. Inside were letters he wrote to himself when he was young, promises, dreams, fears. As he read them, Theo felt like he was talking to another version of himself, a boy still living somewhere in his mind. But as he looked into the fire, he asked himself, is that boy really in the past? Or is he still here, in the same moment with me? Time, for Theo, was no longer a straight line. It was a circle, where all versions of you are connected. Theo's story is like our story. We carry the past inside us, we dream about the future, but everything happens in the present. I want you to try one last thing, if you haven't fallen asleep yet. Close your eyes and just listen to the sound of this moment. Your breath, the sound of the wind outside, or the silence of the room. Ask yourself, is time really passing, or am I the one standing still, and time is just a feeling? Don't rush to find the answer. Just let the question wander, like a star in the sky. I invite you to look up, but I don't ask you to understand. When we finish this part, let your body relax completely, let your breath slow down, and let your mind follow the depth of this idea. Time is not something to be figured out in one night, but a mystery to hold on to think about as you gradually dive into a dream. And when you leave, let this thought lead you to the next part. From time, we will come to the idea of infinity, about what is beyond the limits of this dream. But that's a story for another time. Now, take a break, and let the river of time carry you to sleep.